business is your business. It's all up in my lady business with me, Mary Nisi. Welcome back to All Up in My Lady Business. My name is Mary Nisi, and I disappeared, but I'm back. Guess who's back? Back again. It's me. So yeah, I did disappear. And this isn't some polished new season rebrand. I'm back. My last episode was in July of 2024. Over a year I've been gone. I got just to be honest, I just got incredibly overwhelmed with so many things. I couldn't focus on anything. And so everything that I was doing was just kind of half-assed, honestly, quarter-assed, if we are really being honest. And I really want everything I do to be a full-assed situation. Uh, but it just really turned into a lot of overthinking. I really wanted this podcast to be great, and I felt like it was in good territory, which in my mind still wasn't good enough. What was I trying to be? Did I think I was going to be like the Joe Rogan of the left? Uh, when I, can you imagine if I was the Joe Rogan of the left? Uh, it was I was doing this 10K SB, this 10,000 Small Businesses program through Goldman Sachs, which I believe I've mentioned before on the podcast. Can I pretend like everybody's never listened to me before and this is just a new thing and I got to start with all my references from the beginning? I don't know. This is just, I'm back. Anyway, uh, when I was doing the business course, the 10,000 Small Businesses business program, my podcast was part of my growth plan, which is part of the whole thing. You had like this was a 15-week long business class, and at the end, you had to have this growth plan. You had to have this growth plan that was, that was going to be a new thing that you were adding to your business. And the podcast was part of mine. And we had to do this like blue sky creative problem solving exercise where you generate ideas without limitation. So it's like, if you're just doing like grounded, like, reasonable expectations. And then there were blue sky, which was like, if you could have anything, what would it be? And then the outer, like a outer space one. And, it's like this creative problem solving process where you generate ideas without limitations and judgment. You just think about, if this becomes a reality and successful, what would the ultimate success be? And when I was thinking through that lens, and this, by the way, this is back in the halcyon days of 2019. So, we had different things, different problems, different feelings on the scene. I was like, what do you mean? Like having Oprah or Michelle Obama or like Amy Poehler on my podcast? And I had a moment where I'm like, whoa, what if I did get that put big? And then that almost was worse too, was like thinking that I could even get there. And then I'm like, I'll never get there because I have all this crippling imposter syndrome. Because when you have that quasi goal in the back of your head, it can really make you think that you aren't nailing it. And I was so busy with my real job that I couldn't give this the time and it was eating me. And to be fair, I wasn't even really giving my business probably the focus that it needed because, you know, I was in a frazzled perimenopausal nightmare place in my head. Uh, the imposter syndrome that I had was bananas. I was like, why would it? These were the thoughts that were going through my head. I was like, why would anyone care about what I think? I'm a middle-aged, now suburban mom whose skills that I do have, which is DJing, is something that no one wants to see me do outside of weddings. Weddings were now killing me physically. And honestly, my business was actually in a severe crisis mode internally, that had just basically become clear to me. And so, like, why would anyone even want to take advice or hear what I had to say? My self-esteem was garbage dump level. I assumed that there was like secretly this whole cadre of people who had a lot of opinions about me that were bad. And they thought that I was so dumb for even thinking that anyone cared about what I had to say. And I had no proof of this. I didn't have people weren't writing bad reviews of my podcast. I wasn't getting people saying like, "I listened to your podcast." Like I just knew they were there. It's very who's afraid of little old me. So tell me everything is not about me. But what if it is? They say that they didn't do it to hurt me, but what if they did? Anyway, I became my own worst enemy and I was making excuses. And you know what they say about excuses is that everyone has one. They're like buttholes and they all smell like shit. So, I hate excuses. Excuses are literally whenever somebody comes to me to give me an excuse on why they didn't do something, I all I care you just didn't do it. I don't care about the situation around it. Uh, you just didn't do it, and it drives me bananas. Um, so last summer when I had was I was trying to run my business and deal with all this stuff at Toast and Jam and parent and be a friend to people, be a wife to my husband, uh exercise, be in the world. I am very into crafting. Everything felt like it was all getting a little tiny piece of me, and I was kind of fucking up everything. And so someone finally said to me, "You know, you can just stop." Uh, and for someone who never knows when to quit, that was like a revolutionary thing to be said to say to me, and so I did. I like basically just like Irish goodbye my own podcast. I didn't have a final episode of the season. I didn't say, "Hey guys, I'm leaving for a while." I just disappeared. I was like, I can't even put together like the post to make it work or to even let people know that I was piecing out. I started this podcast 3 months after I quit drinking. And you know how in the well, maybe you don't know. Hopefully, you don't live in a world where you understand the recovery world. But in the recovery world, they say, especially if you're single when you are sober, when you get sober, when you quit drinking, that you should not date anyone for a year getting into recovery. They should also say that you maybe shouldn't start new business ventures, or at least maybe not a public facing project where all you do is talk about yourself inside of 1 year of quitting. Um, so I started this podcast when I was just raw dogging life. And you know what's interesting that I learned about drinking is that I had all these ingrained habits that centered around it. And I don't think everyone is an alcoholic. But when you start paying attention to how much alcohol is a part of our culture, you realize that much of the world revolves around having a drink in your hand. You get reminded about alcohol. I saw some statistic that's like every mile, you get 7 references to alcohol, whether it's on a bus ad or a neon sign in a bar window or, and there's just alcohol everywhere. And all events have drinks. Baby showers have drinks, networking parties, trick-or-treating. For some reason, that was one of the only times that I truly missed drinking was, like, all the parents with, like, roadies while their kids were trick-or-treating, and I was like, "That looks like fun." So, all events have drinks, I even when I was drinking, I was definitely the person that was making that happen. I was the one who was bringing the wine bottles to the baby showers, and, I have learned that the process of quitting drinking isn't linear. Um, it's not something you do once and then suddenly you're the same person you were before. You're just drinking a kombucha at the club. Um, it takes a while. Your brain is all over the place. You're rewiring all of the stuff inside of it. And for me, this was all happening with perimenopause, which, as anyone who listened to my previous oeuvre, was like my entire personality at the time. I couldn't power through things like I used to. My executive functioning skills were like zilch. And I would look at my to-do list and it was like I was looking at it underwater. Like I could see it and it was blurry, but then when I kind of got it out of the water and it was all wet, so I had to like then wait for it to dry. I would be like putting it up to dry and then I would see like a cute puppy making friends with a hippo or oh look, there's a recipe for sourdough bread with cinnamon or also that person's making a really good point about intersexual feminism, and actually I'm doom scrolling. I was actually on my phone. I would look at my to-do list and then I would go to my phone and I would just start looking at everything, and it would suck me in this, like, nightmarish way. I was so addicted to my phone, and, like, on top of that, wow, the creeping fascism, which is now full blown. I mean, before the fascism has been creeping along for the last 10 years, if you really think about it. And now I'm recording this, we are now in full blown fascism. And I don't know how you're dealing with it, but I am like Alex at the end of Clockwork Orange with his eyes propped open. Like I can't stop looking. And I am sort of obsessing over like how we're gonna deal with this as a country in terms of how we're gonna like recover from this, if and when the Democrats grow any balls. to or really a vagina to get us out of this. And I think about it all the time. I talk about it all the time. I'm really fun at parties. I'm not. Uh, and I can't stop thinking or talking about it. And on top of all of this, like all of the doom scrolling, you know, I I had this idea that like two things came to mind when I was thinking about where I was at with that, and that was why would anybody wanna hear me talk hear one woman's way to grapple with entrepreneurship and motherhood all through the lens of our decaying democracy, and then I also had this fear, again, the hubris, that I wouldn't be able to avoid politics, and I didn't want to avoid politics, but all the rights erosion that's going on and, journalists being murdered in other countries and, the way that they're, canceling people and intimidating them, I was like, "What if I get Gestapoed for speaking out against this administration and this dictatorship?" And it is laughable to think that anyone would care about me in the grand scheme of things, but hey, the amount of things that would never happen have happened in the last 8 months, and I can't be disappeared until Sebastian graduates from college. And I literally was thinking to myself, like, "What if I start speaking truth to power and they come after me?" Like, that was really a thought I had. Again, I can't tell if that's, uh, egotistical. There we go. I couldn't believe that I was so egotistical to think that anyone would really care about me in that way, but it was a thought I had. And so I'm marinating in this imposter syndrome. I'm afraid if I say anything, I'm gonna get like I'm fucking Navalny or something. Uh, but then Amy Poehler started a podcast, and, she is my ultimate hero. If I could be friends with anyone, it would be her. Uh, she started a podcast, which is great, and one of the things that she said when she started it was, that she had been wanting to do a podcast, but she didn't think she was ready to do it because she didn't know how it would go. And, you know, she saw all these dudes out there having a lot of success, giving the bare minimum on their podcast. I'm sure she's talking about like Dax Shepard and Jason Bateman, like all those guys that just kind of show up and start recording with no plan. I listen to I've also gotten really into the Andy Samberg, the Lonely Island podcast with Seth Meyers. It is my catnip. It is my emotional support podcast. Like, I listen to that and nothing makes me more happy than those 4 white guys sitting around talking about stuff they did 10 years ago. I don't know why it delights me so much. I would never think that that would be a good concept for a podcast. I would never think, "Hey, let's make a podcast where I just go over shit I did over a decade ago and people will like it." I would not think about that. Now I've got new ideas. Like, what was I doing 10 it's like this is the downside of me doing improv in a time when, there were no phones that had cameras because nothing I did was really recorded, but it'd be like rolling game film on, like, the 10:30 PM show at IO, with my team Fox Force 5. Anyway, all of this is to say is that, Amy Poehler was like, "All these dudes are having this success with podcasts, giving the bare minimum," and she was like, "What if I give 25%, which is a normal person's 75%?" And I felt that in my bones. I felt like maybe I don't need to give everything I have to this podcast. Maybe it can just be fun. And because all the fun was really being sucked out of it, in some ways, many ways. And so I was like, well, maybe I can give 25%. But then conversely, on the exact same podcast, Tina Fey was on there. She was on her first one. And one of the things she told this incredible story. She told this incredible story about back when they were on SNL, Steve Martin had come on to do a bit. He wasn't the host, and he had been on Letterman the night before, just to really date this story that she's telling. And he'd been on Letterman the night before, and he had apparently been very funny. And so she sees Steve Martin, and she says to him, "Hey, you were great tonight. I saw you on Letterman. You killed." And he says, "Well, you got to kill every time," and then walked away. And she was like, she's like, that like stopped me in my in my tracks and, really kind of it made me realize that, like, when comedians are on, her takeaway was, like, when a comedian's on Letterman, they always have to, like, be funny, but if you're, like, a starlet, you're just, like, in a show, you can come on and be like, "I went to the grocery store yesterday." And but anybody who has a job in comedy, you have to always be on. And you have to kill every time has it's actually become kind of a mantra for me, because I get to decide what killing it is, but I do usually kill it. And so I started to kinda have a different attitude towards this. Okay, so now I am 20 years into Toast and Jam. I mean, can you think of very many businesses that make it to 20? Because I can think of a lot because there's a lot of brands out there that have existed for 20 years, but a small business, a DJ company a DJ company, that thing didn't even really exist when I started my company, here I am 20 years later. Um when I started this company, there was no, like, DJ companies for dummies. I didn't have any mentors. There weren't that very many other DJ companies, and I thought they were all my competition, and I couldn't talk to them, and I couldn't pick their brains, and I couldn't look at what they're doing and thinking I could do that too. Because I also have this, like, toxic trait where I feel like I gotta make everything different. Like, I can't just people are like, "Oh, you can just go on to AI and do this and make a business out of it." And I'm like, "Then you're just taking other people's things and just making a new thing," which is like the Taco Bell menu where it's all the same ingredients, just rearranged. They don't taste that different. They just crunch differently depending upon, what you're eating. And, that's never gonna be me. And so I had to make it all up, as I went along. And, I didn't have any mentors. I had to do it all myself in a world that doesn't really wanna help you. Like, when you start a business, they don't, like, hand you a handbook and say, "This is how you incorporate, and this is how you should pay your taxes, and this is how you should categorize your employees." They just let you get a business license and say, "Don't fail, but you probably will." Uh, and so, I had to make it up as I went along, and it all worked really well. Like, I had a we had a re I had a really good thing going, until the pandemic. And then with everything getting gutted by COVID, I was like, "Well, maybe this is the only time I get to make any kind of major changes." Uh, and there was a lot of resistance in there. But in 2024, I started completely restructuring Toast and Jam. We basically kind of tore it all apart and rebuilt it with Melissa Riddle, the queen of my universe, my operations manager, but she's like my second hand and my brain and my heart. Um, and we just put our heads down and worked so hard, especially once I got the podcast out of my brain, like taking up this mental place where I felt like I was fucking it up. Um, uh, like not to give you too much information, but, Toast and Jam did not turn a profit from 2020 to 2023, which is 3 years of no profit, and that's not there's a lot of companies that go a years without making profits, but I hadn't had one yet. Like Toast and Jam started and it just worked. Like, it just I just seemed to just understand how to do it. Um, and, uh And I am like a cash person as well. I don't buy things unless I can actually afford it. And it's like, which I think I've also learned is also rare. I'm a cash person and I don't buy things unless I can actually afford it. And I do think that's the reason why we've been so consistently profitable. I went into 2020, April 2020, with no debt and ended April of 22 almost $500,000 in debt. And a lot of it was forgiven because it was PPP. One of them was protection for money and one of them was protections for employees. PPE, PP no, that's equipment. PPP loans, I got those forgiven, but I still was left with a giant chunk of debt. And, um, if you aren't making anything extra at the end of the year, then you can't pay off debt and you can't rebuild a cash reserve, which I had always had 6 months of, and truly Toast and Jam probably wouldn't be here if I hadn't had that. So, you know, I I really needed to work on the profitability of the company, but I also needed to kind of reorganize things. And, um, and so part of the reason why I was able to get everything back together was Lorraine, my business coach. We had her on the podcast before I disappeared. And with Melissa and Lorraine and I, we really came together and really just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And last month we had our like quarterly meeting where we go over everything in the past and set goals for the future. And we were like on the right path. Like everything was moving in the right direction. And it was almost like hard work pays off, um, which was a shock to me because I haven't had hard work pay off for me in a long time. Part of the reason because I wasn't able to do hard work because I was splitting myself between so many different things that nothing was getting a hard anything from me. And so I realized, like, so we had this meeting in early July and everything was great. And I remember going home that night and I felt like a weight had been lifted off of me. And I was like, oh my God, I can I can unclench my butthole and I can actually have some peace. And then like literally the next day, my cat was being kind of weird and I took him to the vet and he had like he had a, a, a cyst, a giant cyst on his belly that was or on his liver that was pushing against his bladder or against his stomach and then was making him not wanna eat, and it was so expensive, and they, like, extracted, like, basically, like, a grapefruit amount of fluid from him, and he seems fine okay now, but at the time when that happened, I was like when Serge got sick, I was like, "Oh my god. I can't even have 1 day. I can't even have 1 day of peace." But then I dealt with it. He's fine. He's great now. And then, I went on vacation, for 2 weeks, and Melissa only called me once. So, uh, that was really the real proof that, that everything was back in a better place. But that's the thing. The path is not linear. Like, you'll have your ups and your downs, but eventually it all kind of means out at level. One of the things that has also happened this year, in my absence from the pod was I have really been wanting to get back into actually DJing. Because I've been thinking, I mean, as we've been dealing with the business kind of getting better and kind of needing me less and whatever, um, I've been having these like sort of like meditating on like what I actually want to do and the things I actually love and the things that I'm actually good at. And I was like, well, I'm a really good DJ, but I don't really wanna do weddings anymore. They are a lot of work, it takes me away from my family at the time when they're around, and, it's a lot of work. When people are like, "Weddings are just expensive because they're weddings," and it's like, "No, it is if the work I'm gonna give you for a wedding versus the work I'm gonna give you for a corporate event are 2 different things." And so I didn't wanna do weddings anymore unless, I'm still backup and if, they need me, I'm there, but, I didn't wanna, like, sign up for any weddings. And, I was like, "Oh, I wonder if I could do a dance party, but I don't wanna DJ at a club. I don't wanna make 27-year-olds dance." This is making me feel really young and kicky, but, after I had Sebastian, I wasn't DJing outside of my radio show, which I have. I still have my radio show, still do my radio show, but no late night parties, no smashing time, and I didn't wanna be a 40-year-old woman in the club DJing for 27-year-olds, but then I got this idea for Hot Flash Dance. And so it is, um, this huge spark, pun intended, in my midlife crisis. And so I have started DJing these parties, and it's been amazing because it's all women, men aren't allowed, which is amazing because it's like I feel almost bad about how good it feels, to be there because I didn't realize how much men kinda fucked things up when when women are trying to have a good time, and so, like, the comments I would get after them would be like, "I didn't have to worry about my drink. I didn't think my purse was gonna get stolen. I could put my coat down," and I'm like, "That's all because men aren't there?" Like, women aren't bad, but not in the same way. Uh, so they're also from 7 until 10 p.m. And I also think I might even start an earlier one because I had people asking me for it. But that's a different thing. Do you wanna come to an early afternoon dance party? Let me know. I might bring one to you. So they have been incredible. They have just been this joyous, incredible experience. It's like women, not really of all ages, I would say like the 35 and up, uh, cohort jet set. And it's just sweaty women singing at the top of their lungs, and it is I can't tell you how unbelievably fun it is. If I could only do that, I would. Uh, Maybe I could. Maybe there'll be a time in the future where this is all I'm doing, but for now, it has really it's given me I make merch. The merch is super fun. Melissa helps me, and Rennie, my other person who works for me, we work on my lights and photos and things like that. It's been great. Um, and so it's really given me something a really fun creative spark. So the hot flash dance has been very important to me, very fun. And now I've got this other thing that another business I'm starting in my pantheon of businesses. And I don't know. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with my weird obsession with Taylor Swift. She was recently on her boyfriend's podcast, promoting a new album that his I can't even tell you how happy it's made me that she's got a new album coming out. I really miss the Eras tour. But she did an interview on her boyfriend's podcast to launch it, and she said something on there that really kind of blew my mind and has been echoing through my mind, and it is, think of your energy as a luxury, and not everyone can afford it." And it made something, like, click in my brain. It was like, "Oh, oh, man, I let a lot of people have my time that don't deserve my time." I am in a lot of meetings where I am thinking about other things or Google I'm not even paying attention, like, I'm literally just in the meeting. Sorry, people who are sometimes in meetings with me, but sometimes I am not paying attention to this at all. And I'm like, "Why am I doing this? Why am I taking time on these things that I can't I don't wanna do?" And on top of that, the imposter syndrome and the wasting my time and worrying about what some sad sack mean-spirited losers might think about me. It's like that resentment of, like, drinking poison and hoping the other person dies shit. Like, I had been already trying to work on that. I'd already been trying to, like, get over the dumb voices in my head, my internal critic, whose name is Regina. She sucks. And, do you guys do you guys name the internal voice in your head? Uh, Mine has a whole personality. It sucks. Um, but when Taylor said that, it really stuck a fork in my stinking thinking. As I said, I can waste my time on my phone like everyone else can, and as I just mentioned earlier, I have a deep-seated phone addiction, that I've been actively been trying to separate myself from. And like, I even paid for an app. I bought this app called Opal, which it was very expensive, so therefore I wanna use it. And it, like, locks my phone down, so I can't even use it. Like, it literally like, I can't figure out how to undo it. I probably could figure it out, but I also feel like that's not the spirit of having the app. And so I had this app, and, like, at one point, I it gives you, like, reports on how much, phone time you have, and they get real shitty. They're like, "Hi, you were on your phone an average of 8 hours a day, which is, like, only, like, 21% of people your age are on their phone that much. Like, you need to stop." And then I'm like, "Wait, 8 hours?" And then I realized it was including, like, podcasts and, like, listening to music on Spotify, which that's not fair because I do listen to a lot of podcasts and I do listen to a lot of music on my phone, which I need to get off the Spotify thing because they're also terrible. Um, I'm getting there. I'm working on it. But I just need to just first get my phone under control. So once I finally got that shitty thing where they're like, only like you're acting like you're Gen Alpha, but you're an adult. I was like, okay, this is dumb and stupid. And so I'm now down to less than 2 hours a day, which go me. Um, but the other thing that I think about when I'm scrolling, when I'm in there, like, I can't go on TikTok. I only go on TikTok if my friend Michelle sends me TikToks because she's got, like, perfect taste in TikTok. So I'll look at the ones that she gives me, and then I start scrolling for 1 second, then I go, "Wait a minute, this isn't my world. I don't want them to know who I am. I don't wanna be on their algorithm." And so I started looking at what I was even looking at, and then I noticed that count it. If you're going through Instagram, I realize I go through 8 sponsored or promoted or boosted posts, and then I'll get 1 thing from a person that I actually follow. And then there's 8 things, and then one thing from a person I post, and I'm like or a person that I actually follow, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" This is it sucks because it's like Meta doesn't even make the content. It's like TV without the show. It's like Meta doesn't make the content. CBS, ABC, they make their content. HBO, they make their content. They're the ones who are paying to make Game of Thrones and, your friends and neighbors or whatever. And then, the ads are then paid to well, those ones are bad examples because those are streaming services, but, with regular TV, it was like CBS makes the TV show, you know, diaper company X, Huggies Diapers, buys an ad on that show, so they give them the money, and then that's how the TV stations get their money from the ad revenue. And in Meta land, like, they're not making anything, you're making it. We're all making it. We are making all the television shows that they're putting on their platform, and then you pay for it with your time of looking at ads and then even clicking on an ad. So they're, like, getting it is the most insidious business model if you really start thinking about it. Um, and then if you wanna be seen, you have to pay to post it. Like, we are the product. You are the product. When if or whenever anything is free, this is to be said for anything in your life. If you get anything for free from a business, you're the product. Like, y that's you get nothing for free. Like, whatever. Anyway, so I got myself down to 2 hours a day, and quitting my phone felt like what it was like when I was quitting drinking, and I was having withdrawal, and I kept going back, and I was bargaining, and I'm not that bad of a problem, and then if I can just go on for a little bit, it'll be fine, and then I just lose time. And, I feel like our phones are killing us, and the irony is not lost on me that you are probably listening to this on a phone. When I started Toast and Jam, and I started making some money, I bought a condo, that was kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it, like, tripled my rent. So then my rent went from being $400 a month to being $1,200 a month, for my mortgage, and, like, that was crazy to me, and so I really needed to make like, I just had to work because like, I bought a condo. I basically bought the condo so the business would have to work because I needed to be able to make enough money to afford the condo. And so basically, I hid away for 2 years, and I didn't see anyone. I basically just locked myself in my condo, and I made that big, beautiful business. For this year with the podcast, I got that disappearing down to 1 year. And then in the future, maybe one will disappear for 6 months. Who knows what I'll get? I'm gonna just keep having the disappearing, or maybe I don't need to disappear. Maybe I can find some way to integrate it into my life. Because lately I have been questioning the hustle culture. It feels like everybody is working so much and not I have nothing to show for it. And, like it's like, am I grinding for me or am I just feeding a machine? And honestly, part of why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place, like if I'm being like a vulnerable me, is that like I kind of wanted to show how real my business was, um, because I no one kinda thinks it is. Like, I even had, like, a really good friend recently be like, "So is your business actually make any money?" And it's like, "What?" Like, I contribute equally to my household. Like, I like, I don't know why you wouldn't think like, why would I keep doing it if it wasn't making money? Like, like, which is a really weird thing to say. Like, what person would stay in a business for 20 years that made no money? That's such a thing to ask a woman. 'Cause a man wouldn't do that. It's like women just love to waste their time on their thing that they like doing, and it's all just charity, but a woman, it's gotta be or a man, it's like, he gets to start his business and make it a real thing. So, part of this was not necessarily to, like, show my haters that I'm real, but more to be like, this is a real business. And I wanted to show, really, that there's different ways to make your life work and make your way in the world, and still stay true to who you are. And I did it with very few resources. Like no one was giving me money. I didn't have family money. I had $4,000 total. 100%. I had $4,000 in my life when I started Toast and Jam. And I spent almost all of it on an ad that wound up being the real thing that set the whole business on fire was that ad. God, I can't even imagine what it's like to start a business now with sorry, new business company owners. Um, but I was able to do it all because I had nobody else telling me what to do, because I had no idea what I was doing, and no one was particularly supportive of me doing this. I was able to do it all on my own terms. And now, in the face of a crumbling democracy, I'm realizing that my biggest we need to be thinking about community, and we need to be thinking about, you know, what are the things that hold us together, and who are the people that pump you up instead of tearing you down, and who's going to be there if, there's a flood and we need to come together. Like, those are my friends. And I and my friends were really the ones who really helped me out with my business and kind of keeping me going. And, when I started the podcast, um, initially, I was, it was supposed to just be me talking, and then every once in a while I'd have a guest on. But then I kept running out of time to record a podcast of my thoughts. It's really hard to talk by yourself, I mean, I can talk forever and ever, but am I making something people wanna hear? Dunno. And so I started doing interviews with my friends, and then somehow I got on, like, a bunch of podcast promoters, like, and I'm not saying this with, like, "I finally made it," because podcast promoters were reaching out to me. It was like, they probably just looked up the first top 500 podcasts and used AI to pull all the email addresses, because I was getting emails from a bunch of different podcast promoters. Um and, it's always be like, "I'd love to have Rachel Falinga on your website who's on your la, 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 la." You would be amazed at how easily you get on podcast promoters lists, and I got emails being like, "You want to get Regina Falinga, who's a real estate mogul who has a foolproof way to make 12 figures." And, like, I first of all, I don't care about 3 foolproof ways to make 12 figures in real estate. Like, I'm not a real estate agent, and you know don't I mean, maybe those ideas are transferable to other businesses, but, like, I I don't care. And I don't really see, I can't tell this is, like, a dumb thing or a Gen X, like, "Don't tell me what to do," but, like, I don't really want this pod to promote things. Like, people will ask me, like, because you don't really make money off a podcast unless you're doing ads, and you only can do ads once you have thousands and thousands of listeners, and spoiler alert, I don't have thousands and thousands of listeners. So there's really at this level, no one's making money off of a podcast. You're supposed to be on you're supposed to have your podcast because it leads towards the monetization of something else. So, like, my podcast would promote my DJ services. Like, there's a lot of wedding podcasts out there that would promote my DJ services. But I don't need to do that. I don't want That's not what I wanna do with this time. Um, and so, like, it's, um it's just a thing where I don't really like it when I'm listening to someone tell a really cool story, and then they're like, "Yeah, and so please buy my book." And it's like, "Well, can't we just," like, I guess that's what radio is when you're listening to, like, NPR or whatever, you hear, like, fun, slice of life stories, but, uh I don't know. I don't really want this to be a promotion thing. And I wanna talk to my friends and my acquaintances, um, that should be friends, about, like, their jobs and their lives and how they are dealing with the corrosion of non-white people's rights, non-white guys' rights, I really should say, because, hey, guess what, women? Everyone in America, you don't have the same rights as men. You have less rights as men. Every woman identifying person, less rights than men. Or actually those with vaginas have less rights than men. And What we can do to try to do something meaningful with our outrage. My friends are all such fucking ballers, and honestly, I miss them and I never see them. And this is a great way to basically make a group chat come alive. And if it sucks and you hate it, I will pivot because it's my podcast and I can do what I want. I've disappeared before and I can do it again. So here I am, 20 years later. I've got all this experience of running a business and dealing with employees and audits and lawsuits. I helped start a radio station. I've DJed all over. Well, can I say that I have DJed all over the world if I've DJed in 2 countries outside of America? I think I probably can. So I can talk about so many things. Would you like to learn how I decide what to play when I'm DJing a dance party? Do you wanna know what I'm thinking when a drunk uncle comes behind the DJ booth and puts his smelly old arm around me and asks what it'll take for me to play Sinatra next? You already know what I'm thinking. Uh, but what do I do when that happens? Because it all happens all the time. Do you have a work question? like how to ask your boss for something or this thing that happened and you feel weird about it, but you don't know why. I can help you unpack that or at least make a funny joke about it. Either way, I think you will get something out of it. So going forward, I'm going to be, having my friends on. I would love to hear from you guys. We've got this voicemail situation where you can leave me a voicemail and, leave me a thought, a ramble, a breakthrough in your life. I want to weave your stories into this as well. You can do that by going to allupinmyladybusiness.com/voicemail. That again is allupinmyladybusiness.com/voicemail. So yeah, that's it, guys. That is the first episode back. Here to share the realness of business and life. It's not always linear, not always pretty, but it's ours. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for listening to All Up in My Lady Business with me, Mary Nisi. We'd love for you to like, review, subscribe, follow us at All Up in My Lady Business on the gram. And if you're a female identifying person and you want to dance, you can follow. I mean, everybody can follow it. But if you want to be a part of the magic at Hot Flash Dance Party, sign up for the mailing list to find out where our next party is going to be. And if you are looking for a DJ in the Chicagoland area or anywhere else, money's the same color everywhere. Fly us out. ToastandJamDJs.com has the best. And listen to my radio show. I have a radio show on Chirp Radio at chirpradio.org. That's Mondays, every Monday from 12 until 3 p.m. CST. Today's episode is produced by Shiraz Dada. Theme song composed and performed by, you guessed it, Shiraz Dada. All right, guys. Peace out.